good afternoon or good evening. I don't know what time it is there in Norway. I would have liked to be with you. I was looking forward to it, especially eating the lovely food in Norway, smoked salmon, having a good time with my friends. I know many of you are there, especially from the Pakistani community. But I am sure you will understand more than anyone else that I had to be here at this particular time in Pakistan, where history is being made once again. I hope that we don't look back and think of this day as one of the black moments of Pakistan, but I fear it may be. We have had turmoil since the 14th of August. It started earlier, and we recognized that there is a deep friction between civil-military relationships. And we didn't know how it would play out. But something was happening. And by now, Pakistanis begin to know and feel when something is happening. It's something that you feel in your bones. And eventually, it begins to emerge. It gets clearer and clearer. One person who is a leader of a spiritual group has never been in the parliament as such, doesn't have a vote bank, who has a dual nationality from Canada and Pakistan, flew into Pakistan. And there were already rumors that he is coming into Pakistan and he is going to create a scene, he is going to gather some people, and there are going to be some ugly scenes that may follow. And another, unfortunately, who should have been a promising politician of this country and a wonderful cricketer whom we all admired and will admire as a cricketer, as a social worker, turned politician. But this is the problem. Politics is not something for everyone. Politics has its special demands. Politics has its special thinking. And for anyone to think that I can be a politician, or for anyone to think that if I am not a lawyer, I can do it better than them, is a problem that we face in societies like ourselves, where people have excelled beyond themselves simply because there is no question of going forward on merit. And that is also part of democracy. And why I say that is that I have seen for years and years that we've had undemocratic governments, we have had dictatorships of all shades, some rather ruthless, some a bit benign. But what they have all done together, and what is common between them, has been that they have created a set of people for themselves who really did not come necessarily from a political background, but created politicians out of them. And they had a thinking that was a purist thinking, which was sometimes also misguided thinking, wanting to be politicians. I'm afraid that we have one such leader now, many such leaders I should say, but one that is now on the streets of Pakistan with the allegations that there have been massive rigging in the last elections, and that therefore the Prime Minister should resign and should go home. The parliamentarians themselves admit that there was rigging in the last elections, but the rigging was at a private level and people rigged wherever they could because it was a mismanaged election, but the mandate by and large was as it should have been. Everybody is of the view, except one party, that the rigging was not a systematic rigging, and the allegations have no evidence to it. So a movement started to say that there have been rigging. The government decided that we can put up a commission of 3 judges of the Supreme Court, and if they come to the conclusion that it was indeed systematic planned rigging, anywhere connected to the Prime Minister or his party, not only will the Prime Minister and his party resign, but even leader of the opposition said the entire assembly will resign. But that was not acceptable because the agenda was being made somewhere else. And it almost seemed to me over the years that I had seen this script before. It's the actors that have changed. It's the acting that has changed. It's the mannerism that has changed, but the ultimate goal was the same. And the ultimate goal was to disrupt the democratic process and the democratic transition. We have seen the entire country being kept hostage from the 14th of August to this day today. We have seen non-violent people asking for undemocratic demands, like, without any cogent evidence, the resignation of the Prime Minister. And the reason that people resisted it was not because they are in love with this Prime Minister or that they don't have differences with this Prime Minister, but we are of the opinion that if mobs will begin to take the Parliament hostage and ask for an elected Prime Minister, a represented body of the Parliament to dissolve itself, then we have several such mobs. We have a whole Talibanized society which has greater mobs than PTI led by Mr. Imran Khan or PAT led by Dr. Tahirul Qadri, and we have spiritual following of many people who could then get together outside the Parliament, ask for their own kind of system based on Sharia and their form of Sharia, or somebody would want another kind of system, and we would become hostage to mob violence and mob pressure. So many of us are here resisting it. We are standing by the Parliament. The Supreme Court, it seems today, is also standing by the Parliament because we want a democratic process to go forward. And we want that people of Pakistan should live with dignity. We want that people that we choose, rightly or wrongly, I may not agree with them, but they have a right to make the policies. And policies can only be made in the Parliament and not at the army headquarters. And we feel that every time there is a disagreement between the civilians and the military hierarchy, some kind of soft coup or blatant coup takes place. This is the era of soft coups. We are fighting it, we will fight it, and we will resist it. Pakistan has been a country where a dictator, whenever he takes over, has been resisted from day one. We have not had dictators sitting here for decades. We've had them only for a decade. And we are hoping that the next one will be only here for a few months or days, because Pakistani public is getting aware. We have built public opinion. They realize that this is not a healthy way for any nation to go. Naturally, in every society, you will have people who will disagree, and that is there in Pakistan as well. But they are fortunately, in a minority. I cannot say whether they are in absolute minority or whether they are a very small minority. But the fact remains that all political parties of every hue, except one, are standing by the democratic process. The lawyers' profession, which is where I belong, has wholeheartedly thrown in their lot with the democratic process. Civil society, in no uncertain terms, has said, we will not accept another coup, soft or otherwise. Media, though very divided, has by and large been able to expose, because the camera will not lie, expose that who is behind these two political parties, that how things are unfolding, whether the military is actually neutral or not. Today it's very clear that they are not neutral. And we will bear upon them as civil society with our tools. And what are the tools that we have is our voices, is our power of persuasion, is our power of networking, is our power of collective advocacy, is our power of building public opinion, our power of communicating to the people. And we are all trying to do that so that we will convince our military, which we find is a patriotic institution, which we find is an institution, a national institution that every Pakistani loves and adores. We wish and we will be able to bear upon them that politics is not something that you should get into. Because once you get into politics, you not only make a mess of the country, you make a mess of yourselves as well. We want them to have a greater image than what they have, the best image. And we want to live in dignity as Pakistanis, saying that we have come from a society which believes in democracy, which respects human rights, and where not only the rights of women are being protected, but also religious minorities. When talking of women, I was very sad to see that in this particular demonstration that we had women who were actually kept hostage there for many days with little children who did not know what was going to come. And when they were told to march towards the parliament and march towards the Prime Minister's house, the leaders disappeared into their vans, into their bomb-proof cars, into their containers, and these poor women were there with their little children in their arms, looking quite lost because they didn't know what had happened, and the children almost choking with the tear gas. This is exploitation of women, and this is exploitation of children. But when these parties went to meet the government party, which I thought was quite amazing, because majority of the people who were sitting there in these protest marches were women. But when they went for parleys, it was all men. So it's the men that makes the decisions, and it's the women that are there to raise the flag. It's the women that are there to swell the numbers of demonstrators there, but not in decision making. So this is how our women are looked upon, not only politically but otherwise. I think that time is not such that I should go into details about women's rights in Pakistan, just only to say that we have come a long way. There was a time in 1980, that is when I was a young woman, and I'd started in 1968 though, but I went back into agitational politics in the sense, agitating for women's rights. When Ziaul Haq came to power, he was a dictator, he had an anti-women policy, and at that time women's rights was seen as something which was alien to social society and our culture. That we women who were asking for equality were promiscuous women, but that is not so anymore. Today, because women have helped themselves, it's no one but women themselves who have excelled themselves, who have struggled for their own rights. We find women in every field. We find women voices on televisions, in the streets, in the bar associations, even on the bench now, in political parties. But like everywhere else in the world, unfortunately, there is a social prejudice, as though we are lesser, we are inferior, and we have discriminatory laws, particularly in family laws, where women are considered to be the homemaker and the man the provider, the woman who only nurtures the child. It's the man that takes the decision of the child. It's the woman who must obey the husband, not the other way around. And we have discriminatory laws regarding criminal law, regarding the law of evidence, but gradually these things are improving. And that is why I say the rights of women and a democratic process go hand in hand. Women have been able to get much more done in a democratic process than in another kind of political setup. Similarly are the rights of minorities. I cannot say for them that they have become better. Unfortunately, I think it is worse because minority groups have suffered extreme discriminatory laws, even like the laws of blasphemy, which not only affect minorities, but affects everyone now. They have been misused, people have been victimized. There are other laws where the Ahmadiyya community has been discriminated against, rights of minorities where minority women have sometimes been forced to convert, and unfortunately, many of them have been forced to leave this country. We wish to bring our society back to a society, a more egalitarian society, a society where we respect ourselves and respect religious minorities, respect linguistic minorities, and as far as women are concerned, I'm happy to say that they will make the advances themselves. I cannot believe that anyone can stop the advancement of women, either in Pakistan or anywhere in the world. My friends, thank you once again, and I'm very sorry, I do apologize. I should have been with you.